Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Divine Feminine Healers podcast. Is your host, Angelica, intuitive healer. And in today's podcast episode, we're going to do a mid-April energy update. All planets are now direct. You can jump up and down. We can celebrate and talk about why this is such an important time of the month. I usually don't always do mid-month check-ins, and that's because there are a lot of transits that are happening this month that I want to talk about. And specifically, the middle of April is a definite turning point in our astrology. So let's get into it today. Now, all planets are direct. It's an amazing feeling. Specifically, Mercury and Venus just recently went direct. Now, I do want to describe when a planet goes from retrograde to direct, what really happens. Now, a planet's not actually moving in reverse. It's only to our perceivable eye. But when a planet goes in reverse, and think about your car, before you put it into drive, there is that pause, there is that stop, and then you go into drive, and then you're not going to go 0 to 100. You're going to slowly push on the gas and then start to pick up the pace again. And so you really want to think about that in terms of taking action and moving forward. Right now, there has been this collective exhale and pause. I personally was feeling it this past weekend. I got sick and I had this flu that really overtook my whole body, and I'm not good at resting and standing still. I get a lot of clarity through movement and moving my body, but I know when I get sick like that, the medicine is just stillness and rest and not do anything. And it was in that pause that I really felt like I was able to really drop back into my body and tune into my intuition in a way, although that's been a common theme throughout the whole year, in a way that was completely different. So if you're feeling that oh my God, I feel like I'm at a standstill right now, I feel like I'm so exhausted, or I'm just getting a stop, that's because we're a reflection of nature. And right now, this is what nature is projecting. So listen to that pause and stillness. And although you may kick and scream and fight initially to just pause and stop, there's so much sweetness when you do allow yourself to take that break, to take a rest. There's so much good wisdom that can come through that. And in taking this pause and stillness, I have now realized so much clarity, intuitive clarity that has come through on next steps forward, which feels amazing because I don't know about you, but we've been in this foggy energy all year. And this point in time, mid-April, where we're taking this collective pause and finding stillness, it is that recalibration in our energy system to be like, hey, all right, we've had retrogrades going since the beginning of the year. We've had an eclipse season. There was so much that was happening with us, so much release and heaviness. This is our time just to whoa, let's acknowledge everything that's happened. Let's reflect on that. What were the lessons that we can really integrate so that we can move forward in a way that's even more intentional? So that's why I'm taking this mid-April break so that you can reflect on the lessons that we've learned so far in 2025, learn how to implement them as the clarity starts to come forward and more forward action starts to take heed in the months to come. So first, let's talk about what has happened so far in 2025, and then I'll describe the energy as we're moving forward. So in 2025, we started out the year with a Mars retrograde. Those of you who have strong Aries and Scorpio placements, you'll have felt this Mars retrograde the most. I have my moon in Scorpio, and I really feel for you who have been feeling this transit. So back in December of 2024 is when Mars went retrograde. And he started out in Leo, which is our confidence, our ambition, but highlighting this theme. This is going to be a lesson for you to understand what is your heart's truest desires beneath the mask of what other people want for you, what will please others, will make other people happy. What do you really want? And a retrograde is going to say, it may not come with the easiest of lessons. We are going to show you through challenge only because as humans, the only way that you really make change is through that painful experience sometimes. So some of us had to learn the hard way of what is not in alignment with our heart's true desires and how to let that go and how to release that. Now, at the end of February, Mars went out of retrograde and direct. However, he was now in the sign of Cancer, and Mars and Cancer, they're very opposing energies. Mars is really uncomfortable in Cancer, so he can't exude his highest expressions of forward action, ambition, passion, desires. It's not clear yet. In fact, it was very unclear because he had to deal with the heaviness of emotions that comes with Cancer energy. Cancer is all about feeling into your body and tuning in to your intuition. And we've had that exact lesson show up in a lot of different transits that I'm going to go into after this. But let's really explore this Mars and Cancer theme. There is something that you have been taught this past 4.5 month cycle of how to tune into your feelings and emotions and process them in a different way than you have before, and how to lead with your intuition before taking action. And it's highlighting and circling back to this overall theme of how does this connect to what your heart's truest desires are and what you're meant to do in this lifetime. And I say that because on April 17th, Mars now finally moves out of the sign of Cancer, after being there for months, and moving into the sign of Leo, back where he started back in December 2024. So it's really starting to close the loop on this storyline of what is your heart's truest desires, and how does tuning into feeling intuition first give you the clarity that you need before you take action. It's been such a beautiful lesson. I bet sometimes having to learn in really painful ways, but so beautiful that we can tune into these very feminine gifts in order to get to the answers of what is really going to light us up in this lifetime. Now, this theme will continue to create itself as Mars begins to build more energy and stamina in Leo. Of course, he had just moved there on April 17th. So give this storyline some time, but you are going to start to feel clearer on what your heart's truest desires are, which for my fire signs is going to feel so good for you. This is where clarity starts to come through. Another way that clarity is starting to come through now that Mercury is direct, Mercury moved into Aries. Whew, love a fire sign for Mercury. This is clarity. This is directness in your communication. It's going to feel good. It's going to feel more easeful for communication and feel more poignant, and it's going to feel more like very specific, like a sharp edge of a knife, being like, that is exactly where I want to take this conversation, which I love. As I mentioned, there's a lot of themes happening in astrology right now of before you take action, tune into your intuition, tune into feeling. Another transit that we learned earlier this year, that we started out the year, was Saturn in Pisces. Now, Saturn has been in Pisces since 2023. Those of you who have been in your Saturn return, meaning natally, Saturn is in Pisces for you. Saturn makes a full cycle through all 12 zodiac signs every 30 years. So usually around 30, 60, 90, so on and so forth, you will get your Saturn return, which Saturn is not for the faint-hearted. He likes to teach you lessons in harsh ways. Some of us feel like we're going through the wash machine of just lesson after lesson, pummel after pummeled, and he's not meant to hurt you. He is just trying to make you stronger and more empowered. Now, the lesson all in all, collectively, of this Saturn and Pisces is building something from your intuition. Saturn is all about the body. It's all about structures. It's about goals, very like masculine qualities, right? However, in the sign of Pisces, that's intuition. That is those feminine qualities of feeling and emotion. So it's so interesting that there's been something about you having to restructure your life, your habits, your career, your relationships in a way that is more intuitive. You're not allowed to go on someone else's plan anymore. You're not allowed to just take someone else's formula. You really had to tune into what felt good for you and make your goals out of this intuition, out of this, what felt good, what felt right for you. And this is an important theme to come back to right now, because Saturn is going to wrap up his time in Pisces this next month, and he starts his journey into Aries. Now, he'll have a retrograde back into Pisces later in the year, but this is a definitive shift where Saturn starts to finally move forward into a new sign. Those of you in your Saturn return, hallelujah, you're going to feel so much better. And I'm just so proud of you. I went through my Saturn return right before you. I know how it is, and it's going to feel, I hope, nonetheless, I hope you feel so empowered. Like I did that. And if you feel that way, bravo, amazing. You successfully passed your Saturn return. You deserve 1,000,000 gold stars. And the last transit that I want to talk about and just take some time to self-reflect on, Venus was retrograde for the past 40 days and was very much in the sign of Pisces. So Venus in Pisces is all about, Venus, first of all, is the planet of self-worth. And it had been conjunct Mercury in this Pisces energy. And Mercury has to do with self-expression. So a lot of us were learning in this retrograde period lessons on how to really tap into our self-worth and get a little up level. That's a very nice way of saying you may be challenged and your self-worth and self-expression may be put into question during this 40-day cycle. And a lot of us had to learn it in harsh ways. I know a lot of my clients had to. However, it was just testing you of believing in yourself, coming back to what you know yourself to be true, you know your value, you know your worth in this world, and being able to articulate that and express that. Not saying that it was easy, not saying that it was clear, but you had to learn that lesson. And now that Venus is direct, there is that lesson that's wrapping up on your self-worth of, okay, what chapter am I closing out? What am I not willing to accept anymore from other people? What they say, what they do in reference to my self-worth, and how am I stepping into this next version of myself? Venus will move into Aries at the end of the month, which is going to be, again, another great shift coming out of this Pisces, dreamy, intuitive energy, and then going into this very passionate, clear, desire-y, action-oriented energy is going to feel a lot better, a lot like the weight is lifted off. Now, what's to come for the month ahead? So as you can hear with a lot of these transits, we're moving from a water sign, a deeply feeling and intuitive sign, into fiery signs, action, let's go, passionate energy. And this is where some of us are going to really see changes happen, almost happening quickly because of that energy shift, where a lot of these planets are moving from Pisces into Aries. Now, of course, Saturn won't move into Aries until end of May. So that's May 25th. But with Mercury and Venus moving into Aries, you're definitely going to feel a shift in your energy. So make sure you take time to pause and reflect on these lessons of, how am I feeling more into my body? How am I choosing intuition before I take action? And how is that so important to this storyline and lesson for all these changes that want to come into my life? These changes are meant to happen for you. They're going to be so beautiful. And if you can choose to rely on this lesson of tuning into your feeling and intuition before taking action, these changes are going to come in a lot smoother, and they're going to feel a lot more in flow because you're now working with these energies. So it's kind of interesting, all in all. April, when I tuned into the energy, was kind of like a mixed bag because there's so many shifts that are happening. It's like half of the month is we're still in this dreamy like state, tuning into our intuition, needing a lot of rest, kind of being exhausted from all of the changes and retrogrades that have been happening, and then shifting into, okay, the changes are here, the clarity is coming, it's time to move forward and take action. So make sure you take that time for stillness to really recalibrate your energy and to understand how you're moving forward differently than you have before ever. And those changes will come in as smoothly as changes can possibly come in. Now we'll finish out the end of the month with our new moon in Taurus, given that the sun moves into Taurus somewhere around April 20th. And Taurus is all about grounding energy, it's abundance, it's pulling in peaceful energy. One of the messages that I channeled this month was just coming into peaceful abundance. So feeling really grounded in your body and being able to attract magnetic opportunities and relationships towards you. So I do see that happening for a lot of us as we move into this Taurus energy. I will have another update for the new moon in Taurus next week to prep you for that energy. But for now, if you're feeling that halt and stop, just take time to recalibrate, take some time for reflection, and get excited because clarity is coming forward. I'm already starting to feel new intuitive insights, downloads that are coming through because I took that pause for myself, and it's feeling overall really good. So I'm sending you all a lot of love and energy. If you're wanting specific clarity on your healing journey, every Wednesday I go live on Instagram and I do mini intuitive card pulls. They've been so fun to do. All you have to do is log on and give your first and your last name, and then I pull a card for you, and whatever message comes through, comes through. Of course, if you're wanting a deeper healing, I do one-on-one healing sessions where we can really understand what's blocking your energy. I look at your metaphysical anatomy, and not only do we identify it, but I'm able to actually transmute that energy and clear it so that you can feel lighter and good and know what your next step forward is on your path. Plus, so many messages come in through your guides, and those are just the best. I absolutely love doing those readings. So you can book in for a reading in the show notes or join me on IG Live every Wednesday. Thank you all for tuning in, sending you a lot of energy. Make sure you rest, recalibrate your energy, and I will see you all next week for our new moon in Taurus.